The spaceship spiraled out of control, its metallic hull glowing red as flames licked at its sides. Inside, Jack Harper gripped the controls tightly, his knuckles white and his heart pounding in his chest. He had been on a routine supply run to a distant mining colony when disaster struck. A malfunction caused by an asteroid collision sent his ship hurtling off course, spinning wildly through space. The alarms blared deafeningly, but Jack barely heard them over the roar of panic in his mind. His eyes darted across the dashboard, searching for any way to regain control, but it was too late. The last thing he saw before everything went black was the blinding flash of an explosion. When Jack opened his eyes, he wasn't sure where he was, or even if he was alive. The ground beneath him felt soft, almost like moss, and the sky above was unlike anything he'd ever seen. Two suns hung in the heavens, one golden and bright, the other smaller and tinged with orange. Their combined light bathed the landscape in warm hues, making everything look surreal. Jack groaned as he tried to sit up, pain shooting through his body. His head throbbed, and every muscle ached. Slowly he looked around. The forest surrounding him was alien, yet strangely beautiful. Trees with translucent leaves shimmered in the sunlight, and strange plants pulsed faintly as though they were alive. Jack forced himself to stand, his legs wobbling beneath him. He needed to find his ship, or at least figure out where he was. As he stumbled forward, the air filled with unfamiliar sounds. There were growls, chirps, and noises that seemed almost musical. It didn't take long for Jack to realize this planet was teeming with life, and not all of it friendly. A low rumble echoed nearby, and he froze, his breath catching in his throat. Out from behind a cluster of glowing bushes emerged a creature unlike anything he'd ever imagined. It stood taller than a man, with shimmering blue skin and elongated limbs. Its large almond-shaped eyes glowed faintly, studying him with an intensity that made Jack's skin crawl. Before he could react, more creatures appeared, surrounding him in a loose circle. They moved gracefully, their movements fluid and deliberate. Jack raised his hand slowly, hoping to show he meant no harm. "I'm not here to fight," he said, though he doubted they understood him. One of the beings stepped closer, holding what looked like a small device in its hand. Without warning, it pressed the object against Jack's neck. A sharp sting shot through him, and his vision blurred. Darkness closed in once again, and he collapsed to the ground. When Jack woke up, he found himself lying on something cool and smooth. Blinking away the haze, he realized he was indoors. The room around him sparkled with light, reflecting off walls made of some kind of crystal-like material. Everything shimmered and shifted colors as if alive. Around him stood several of those, tall, blue-skinned beings, their glowing eyes watching him intently. At first, Jack thought he was dreaming, or hallucinating, but the stiffness in his muscles told him otherwise. In the center of the room sat a regal figure who immediately drew his attention. She was unmistakably female, with flowing silver hair that cascaded down her back. Her violet eyes were piercing, and she wore an intricate suit of armor adorned with glowing symbols. She radiated authority, commanding respect even from someone like Jack, who had no idea what was going on. The woman spoke, her voice melodic but incomprehensible. Then a small device on her wrist lit up, and suddenly Jack could understand her words. "I am Lyra, princess of the Velani people," she said, her tone calm but firm. "You have arrived during our most sacred time, the mating season." Jack blinked, trying to process what she was saying. Before he could respond, she continued, explaining that according to ancient prophecy, an outsider would come during this season and become the chosen mate of the princess herself. Jack's mind raced. This had to be some kind of misunderstanding. He wasn't part of their culture, their traditions. Yet as he looked around, he noticed how the others regarded him, with a mix of awe and curiosity. Despite his protests, Jack was treated not as a prisoner but as a guest of honor. Servants brought him fine robes to wear and offered him exotic foods that tasted both strange and delicious. He was given a luxurious chamber to rest in, though sleep eluded him. His thoughts swirled with questions. Why had he been brought here? What did these aliens want from him, and why did they seem to believe he was special? Over the next few days, Jack tried to piece together what little he knew about the Vaylani. From what he gathered, they were a highly advanced species, with a deep connection to their planet. There, society revolved around rituals and ceremonies, especially during the mating season. This was a time when warriors competed for the right to join the royal family through marriage. To Jack's disbelief, he was now considered a contender, not because of skill or strength, but because of fate. As he wandered the palace grounds, Jack couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Everywhere he went, eyes followed him. Some of the Vaylani seemed curious, while others appeared skeptical. Jack didn't blame them. If their roles were reversed, he wouldn't trust an outsider either. Still, there was one person who stood out among the crowd: Lyra. Though she carried herself with the dignity of a ruler, there was a kindness in her gaze that set her apart. Whenever their paths crossed, she would pause to speak with him, asking about his world and sharing glimpses of hers. One evening, as Jack sat alone in the garden, Lyra joined him. She explained the weight of her responsibilities as princess and confessed that she felt trapped between duty and desire. Jack listened intently, realizing she was more than just a figurehead. Beneath her regal exterior lay someone who struggled with expectations much like he did. For the first time since arriving, Jack felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, he could find a place here, even if it meant embracing the unknown. Days passed quickly, and soon, the reality of his situation became clear. Jack was no longer just a lost traveler. He was part of something bigger. Whether he liked it or not, the fate of two worlds might depend on the choices he made next. Jack's days in the palace passed in a blur of confusion and wonder. Every morning he woke up to the sight of the crystal walls glowing softly with the light of the twin suns. Servants brought him meals that tasted strange but satisfying, and he was given free rein to explore parts of the palace. Yet no matter where he went, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being observed. The Vaylani moved around him with quiet efficiency, their glowing eyes always flickering toward him. When they thought he wasn't looking, Lyra, the princess, spent more time with him as the days went on. She explained the significance of the mating season, a tradition older than the planet itself. During this time, the strongest and most skilled males competed for the honor of becoming mates to the royal family. These matches weren't just about physical strength. They tested intelligence, loyalty, and adaptability. Jack listened carefully, trying to understand what was expected of him. He still couldn't believe he was part of this ancient ritual, especially since he had no idea how to compete against beings who were clearly superior in every way. One afternoon, Lyra led Jack to a grand arena at the heart of the city. The structure was massive, its walls made of the same shimmering material as the palace. Inside, crowds of Vaylani gathered, their murmurs filling the air like a low hum. Warriors clad in ceremonial armor stood ready, their bodies tense with anticipation. Jack felt out of place, dressed in simple robes while everyone else exuded power and confidence. Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch surprisingly gentle. "You don't have to fight today," she said, her voice calm but firm. "This is just an introduction. Watch and learn." The trials began soon after. The first challenge involved brute strength. Two warriors faced off in a ring, grappling with each other as the crowd cheered. Their movements were lightning fast, their muscles rippling beneath their blue skin. Jack watched in awe, knowing he could never match their speed or power. Another trial tested intelligence. A group of competitors had to solve a complex puzzle involving glowing symbols and shifting patterns. Jack strained to follow the logic, but it was far beyond anything he'd encountered before. As the day wore on, Jack grew increasingly anxious. He didn't belong here. These challenges were designed for the Vaylani, not for someone like him. When the final event ended, Lyra turned to him with an unreadable expression. "You'll have your own trial soon," she said. "But remember, strength isn't always measured by muscle or skill." Jack nodded, though her words did little to ease his worries. That night, unable to sleep, He wandered the palace gardens. The air was cool, and the twin moons cast a silvery glow over the landscape. As he walked, he noticed a figure standing near a cluster of bioluminescent plants. It was Kale, one of the warriors who had participated in the trials earlier. Unlike the others, Kale seemed approachable, his demeanor calm and unassuming. "Can't sleep?" Kale asked, his voice deep but friendly. Jack shook his head. "Too much on my mind." Kale chuckled softly. "I imagine so. Being chosen by fate must be overwhelming." "It's not exactly what I planned for my life," Jack admitted. Kale studied him for a moment before speaking again. "You're different from us, but that doesn't mean you're weak. Sometimes outsiders see things we can't. Maybe that's why the prophecy chose you." Jack frowned. "Even if that's true, I don't know how to compete with your people." "I'm not strong enough or smart enough." Kyle smiled faintly. "Strength comes in many forms. Let me help you. We can train together. Prepare you for the trials ahead." At first, Jack hesitated. He didn't want to impose, but the offer was too tempting to refuse. Over the next few days, Kyle became his mentor, teaching him techniques to adapt to the planet's harsh conditions. They practiced in a secluded area of the palace grounds away from prying eyes. Kyle showed Jack how to move efficiently despite the heavier gravity, how to read the subtle cues in the Vaylani's body language, and how to use his surroundings to his advantage. Though progress was slow, Jack began to feel a glimmer of hope. He wasn't going to win any battles with brute force, but maybe he didn't need to. Kale encouraged him to focus on strategy and teamwork, qualities that were just as valuable as raw strength. One evening, after a particularly grueling session, Kale clapped Jack on the shoulder. "You're learning," he said. "That's all that matters. Trust yourself and you might surprise everyone, including yourself." As the days passed, Jack also found himself growing closer to Lyra. She often joined him during his breaks, asking about his training and sharing stories about her own experiences. Though she carried the weight of leadership, there was a warmth to her that made Jack feel at ease. He began to see her not just as a princess, but as someone who understood the pressures of responsibility. One evening, as they walked through the gardens, Lyra spoke openly about her doubts. "My people expect so much from me," she said, her voice tinged with sadness. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm making the right choices." Jack nodded. "I know what that feels like. Back on Earth, I always felt like I was supposed to have everything figured out. But life doesn't work that way." Lyra looked at him, her violet eyes softening. "Maybe that's why fate brought you here. To remind me that perfection isn't the goal, growth is." Their bond deepened with each passing day. Jack realized that despite their differences, they shared a common struggle. Both of them were trying to navigate expectations while staying true to themselves. And though the trials loomed ahead, Jack began to feel a sense of purpose. This wasn't just about surviving, it was about proving that even an outsider could make a difference. On the eve of the final trials, Jack stood alone in his chamber, staring at the glowing walls. His mind raced with thoughts of what lay ahead. He knew he wasn't ready, not completely, but he also knew he couldn't give up. For the first time since arriving on this alien planet, he felt a spark of determination. Whatever happened tomorrow, he would face it head on. The next morning, the palace buzzed with energy. The final trials were about to begin and the entire city had gathered to watch. Jack took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. He didn't know if he could win, but he knew one thing for certain. He wasn't the same man who had crash-landed here weeks ago. Whatever the outcome, he had already changed, and perhaps in some small way so had the world around him. The day of the final trials arrived, and the atmosphere in the city was electric. Crowds of Vaylani filled the streets, their glowing eyes reflecting excitement and anticipation. The grand arena stood at the heart of it all, its crystal walls shimmering under the light of the twin suns. Jack stood at the edge of the gathering, feeling small and out of place. Around him, warriors clad in ceremonial armor prepared for the challenges ahead. Their confidence was palpable, their movements sharp and precise. Jack, on the other hand, felt like an imposter. His robes were plain compared to their ornate attire, and his body lacked the strength and grace that seemed so natural to them. Lyra appeared beside him, her presence calming yet commanding. She wore her regal armor, the glowing symbols etched into its surface pulsing faintly. Her violet eyes met his, and for a moment, Jack felt a surge of courage. "Remember," she said, her voice steady, "this is not just about strength. It's about who you are." Jack nodded, though doubt still lingered in his mind. He had trained hard with Kyle, learning to adapt to the planet's conditions and focusing on strategy rather than brute force. But as he looked around at the towering Velani warriors, he couldn't help but wonder if it would be enough. The first trial began soon after. It was a test of physical endurance, a race through a dense forest filled with obstacles. The competitors sprinted forward, their long legs covering ground with ease. Jack followed behind, his human body struggling against the heavier gravity. His lungs burned and his muscles screamed, but he pushed onward, determined not to give up. Along the way, he encountered pitfalls and barriers designed to slow him down. Instead of trying to overpower them, he used his surroundings to his advantage, climbing over fallen trees and using vines to swing across gaps. Though he finished, far behind the others, the crowd murmured approvingly, impressed by his ingenuity. The second trial tested intelligence. Competitors were led into a chamber filled with glowing symbols that shifted and rearranged themselves constantly. The goal was to decipher a pattern and activate a series of panels in the correct order. Jack watched as the Velani worked quickly, their minds clearly adapted to such puzzles. When it was his turn, Jack approached the task differently. He remembered Kale's advice to see things from a new perspective and focused on the rhythm of the shifting symbols. Slowly, he began to notice a sequence, one that repeated itself subtly. With careful precision, he activated the panels, completing the challenge just as the time ran out. The crowd erupted into cheers, astonished by his success. As the trials continued, Jack faced each new challenge with determination. There were moments when he faltered, when his human limitations threatened to overwhelm him. But he refused to give up, relying on creativity and teamwork instead of raw power. During one trial, he formed an alliance with Kale, working together to solve a problem neither could have tackled alone. Their collaboration earned loud applause from the audience, who recognized the value of unity over individual strength. By the time the final trial arrived, Jack was exhausted but resolute. This challenge was unlike the others. It was a test of leadership. Each competitor was placed in charge of a small group tasked with building a structure using materials scattered across a field. The goal was not only to complete the task, but to inspire and guide the team effectively. Jack took a deep breath as his group gathered around him. Most of them were Velani, taller and stronger than him, but they listened intently as he outlined a plan. He assigned roles based on each member's strengths, encouraging them to work together seamlessly. When problems arose, he stayed calm, finding solutions without hesitation. As the structure took shape, Jack realized something important. He wasn't doing this alone. His team trusted him, and he trusted them. Together, they completed the challenge just as the suns began to set, their structure standing tall and solid. The crowd roared, their cheers echoing through the arena. Jack felt a wave of relief wash over him, mingled with pride. He hadn't won every trial, but he had proven himself in ways no one expected. When the final results were announced, the elders gathered in the center of the arena. Their glowing eyes scanned the competitors before turning to Jack. One of them stepped forward, speaking in a voice that resonated throughout the space. "Though he lacks the strength and speed of our people, this outsider has shown qualities we value deeply: ingenuity, perseverance, and the ability to unite others. By ancient law and prophecy, he is declared the victor." The crowd erupted into applause, their cheers deafening. Jack stood frozen, unsure of what to feel. Relief, pride, disbelief, all of it swirled inside him. Lyra approached him, her expression unreadable at first. Then slowly, she smiled, extending her hand. "You've done more than survive," she said. "You've changed us." Jack hesitated for a moment before taking her hand. He didn't fully understand what this meant for his future, but he knew one thing for certain: his journey was far from over. As he stood there, surrounded by the Veilani people, he felt a strange sense of belonging. This alien world, once so foreign and terrifying, was beginning to feel like home. That evening, Jack wandered the palace gardens alone, reflecting on everything that had happened. The air was cool, and the twin moons cast a soft glow over the landscape. He thought about Earth, about the life he had left behind, and wondered if he would ever return. But as he looked up at the stars, he realized something important. This wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about growth, about becoming someone capable of bridging two worlds. Kale found him there, leaning against a tree. "You did well today," he said, his tone warm. "Better than anyone expected." "Not everyone," Jack replied, thinking of Lyra. "She believed in me from the start." Kyle nodded. "She sees something special in you." "We all do now." Jack smiled faintly, grateful for the support. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time he felt ready to face it. Whatever challenges lay in store, he would meet them head-on, armed with the lessons he had learned here, and perhaps in some small way, he could help bring humans and Veilani closer together. As the night grew deeper, Jack returned to the palace, his mind filled with possibilities. The trials were over, but his journey was just beginning. For better or worse, he was no longer just a lost traveler. He was part of something greater, a story written in the stars above and the shimmering sands below. The days following the trials passed quickly for Jack. Life in the palace became a whirlwind of ceremonies, meetings, and introductions as he adjusted to his new role as consort to Princess Lyra. At first, it was overwhelming. The Veilani people regarded him with a mix of curiosity and respect, but there were also whispers of doubt. Some believed he didn't belong, that an outsider could never truly understand their ways. Jack heard the murmurs, saw the skeptical glances, and felt the weight of their expectations pressing down on him. Yet he refused to let it break him. Lyra stood by his side through it all, guiding him patiently. She explained the intricacies of Veilani culture, their rituals, their history, and their values. Jack listened intently, soaking up every detail. He wanted to prove himself not just as a mate, but as someone who could contribute meaningfully to their world. Slowly, he began to earn their trust. When he spoke during gatherings, his words carried a sincerity that resonated with many. He shared stories of Earth, its beauty, its struggles, and its potential. In return, the Veilani opened up to him, teaching him about their planet's wonders and challenges. One of the most surprising aspects of his new life was the bond he formed with Kale. Though Kale had been a competitor in the trials, he now treated Jack like a brother. They trained together regularly, honing Jack's skills and preparing him for any future challenges. Kyle also introduced Jack to other warriors, helping him build relationships within the community. These connections mattered more than Jack had realized at first. They weren't just about acceptance, they were about understanding. Through these friendships, Jack learned that the Veilani weren't so different from humans. They laughed, argued, loved, and dreamed just like anyone else. Despite the progress, Jack still struggled with homesickness. Nights were the hardest. As he lay in his chamber staring at the glowing walls, memories of Earth flooded his mind. He thought about his family, his friends, and the simple joys he had taken for granted. Sunsets without twin suns, rain without shimmering plants, conversations without translators. Sometimes the longing felt unbearable, but then he would think of Lyra, of her kindness and strength, and remind himself why he had chosen to stay. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about building a bridge between two worlds. Over time, Jack found ways to blend his human identity with his new role among the Veilani. He suggested ideas for collaboration, proposing ways humans and aliens could work together. For example, he shared knowledge of Earth's technology, explaining how it might benefit the Veilani in areas like agriculture or energy production. In return, the Veilani taught him about their advanced methods of healing and sustainable living. These exchanges sparked excitement among both peoples, creating opportunities for mutual growth. Lyra played a key role in this process. Together, she and Jack worked tirelessly to foster understanding between their cultures. They organized events where humans and Veilani could interact freely, sharing food, music, and stories. At first, these meetings were awkward, filled with misunderstandings and cautious politeness. But as time went on, barriers began to fall. Jack watched with pride as laughter replaced hesitation and curiosity replaced fear. It wasn't perfect. There were still moments of tension, but it was a start. One evening, after a particularly successful gathering, Lyra invited Jack to join her on a secluded balcony overlooking the city. The view was breathtaking. Lights from the twin moons bathed the landscape in silver, while the stars above twinkled like scattered diamonds. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Lyra broke the silence. "You've changed us," she said softly, her violet eyes meeting his. "Before you came, we saw outsiders as threats. Now, we see possibilities." Jack smiled, though his heart swelled with emotion. "And you've changed me," he replied. "I used to think I was just ordinary. But being here has shown me that even someone like me can make a difference." Lyra nodded, her expression thoughtful. "That's what makes you special, Jack. You don't try to be something you're not. You embrace who you are, and that's what inspires others." Her words stayed with him long after they returned to the palace. They gave him strength on the difficult days when doubt crept back in. There were still challenges ahead. Political tensions, cultural differences, and the ever-present question of whether peace between humans and Veilani could truly last. But Jack faced each obstacle with determination, knowing he wasn't alone. As weeks turned into months, Jack settled deeper into his role. He became an ambassador of sorts, representing humanity to the Veilani and vice versa. His presence helped ease fears on both sides, proving that cooperation was possible. He also continued to grow personally, learning more about himself and the world around him. The alien planet, once so foreign and intimidating, began to feel like home. One night, as Jack stood on the same balcony where he had spoken with Lyra, he looked out at the horizon. The twin suns were rising, painting the sky in hues of gold and orange. Below, the city stirred to life, its streets bustling with activity. Jack felt a sense of peace wash over him. He thought about everything he had experienced since crashing on this planet. The trials, the friendships, the love he had found with Lyra. It hadn't been easy, but it had been worth it. In that moment, Jack realized something profound. This wasn't the end of his journey. It was only the beginning. He had come to this alien world as a lost traveler, unsure of his place in the universe. Now, he was part of something greater, a story that transcended planets and species. Whatever the future held, he was ready to face it, not as an outsider, but as someone who belonged. As the light of the twin suns grew brighter, Jack took a deep breath, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. He didn't know what lay ahead, but he knew one thing for certain. He was exactly where he was meant to be. Months had passed since Jack became the consort of Princess Lyra, and life on the alien planet had settled into a rhythm. The initial shock of his new role had faded, replaced by a growing sense of purpose. Jack no longer felt like an outsider, looking in. He was part of the Veilani world now, woven into its fabric through bonds of trust, friendship, and love. Yet, even as he embraced this new life, he couldn't ignore the lingering questions about his future, or the challenges that lay ahead. One morning, as Jack stood on the balcony overlooking the city, he noticed something unusual. A group of human ships hovered in the distance, their metallic forms glinting under the light of the twin suns. At first he thought it might be a supply vessel or a lost explorer, but as the ships drew closer, his heart sank. These weren't ordinary travelers. Their presence carried an air of tension, one that sent ripples through the otherwise peaceful atmosphere. Word spread quickly throughout the palace. The elders convened an emergency meeting, and Jack was summoned to join them. As he entered the grand chamber, he saw Lyra seated at the center, her expression calm but alert. Around her, the elders murmured among themselves, their glowing eyes flickering with concern. When Jack took his place beside Lyra, she turned to him, her voice steady but firm. "These humans have come searching for you," she said. "They claim they are here to retrieve a missing pilot." Jack's stomach tightened. He had known this day might come, but he hadn't expected it so soon. The idea of leaving the Velani and Lyra felt unbearable. Yet he also understood the implications of ignoring the humans' arrival. If tensions escalated, it could jeopardize everything he and Lyra had worked so hard to build. "I won't go back," Jack said firmly, his voice carrying across the room. "This is my home now." The elders exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable. One of them, an older Velani with silver markings etched into his skin, spoke up. "Your decision is clear, but theirs may not be. We must handle this carefully." Lyra nodded in agreement. "We will meet with them," she said. "But we must show strength and unity. They cannot take what belongs to us, not without consequence." Preparations began immediately. The Velani fortified the city, ensuring their defenses were ready if needed. At the same time, they prepared for diplomacy, crafting messages of peace and cooperation to present to the humans. Jack played a key role in this process, acting as a bridge between the two sides. He knew the humans better than anyone else here, and his insights proved invaluable. When the day of the meeting arrived, Jack accompanied Lyra to the landing site where the human ships had touched down. The sight of the vessels brought back memories of Earth. The familiar hum of engines, the smell of metal and fuel, the sharp lines of human design. As the hatch opened and figures stepped out, Jack recognized some of the faces. They were members of his former crew sent to investigate his disappearance. "Jack Harper," one of them called out, his tone a mix of relief and disbelief. "You're alive." Jack nodded, stepping forward cautiously. "I am," he replied, "but I'm not coming back with you." The leader of the group frowned, clearly taken aback. "You don't understand. You've been declared missing in action. Everyone thinks you're dead." "I know," Jack said, his voice calm but resolute. "But things have changed. I've found a new life here, a new purpose. I can't leave." The humans exchanged uneasy glances, their confusion evident. One of them stepped forward, speaking with urgency. "Jack, this isn't just about you. If word gets out that we've made contact with an alien species, it could cause panic back home. We need to handle this carefully." Jack understood their concerns, but he also knew the truth. "Panic comes from ignorance," he said. "If we work together, if we show people that coexistence is possible, we can avoid fear." The conversation continued for hours, with both sides presenting their arguments. Jack explained the progress he and Lyra had made in fostering understanding between humans and Velani. He shared stories of collaboration, of how their two cultures had begun to learn from each other. Slowly, the human skepticism gave way to curiosity. They asked questions, listened intently, and began to see the potential for something greater than conflict. By the end of the meeting, a tentative agreement was reached. The humans agreed to leave peacefully, promising to keep the existence of the Velani secret for now. In return, Jack vowed to continue serving as an ambassador, working to strengthen ties between their worlds. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was a start. As the human ships departed, Jack watched them disappear into the sky, feeling a mixture of relief and sadness. He missed Earth, missed the familiarity of his old life, but he knew he had made the right choice. This planet, these people, they were his family now. In the weeks that followed, Jack threw himself into his work with renewed energy. He and Lyra expanded their efforts to promote peace and understanding, organizing more events and exchanges between humans and Velani. They faced setbacks along the way, moments when distrust threatened to undo their progress. But each time they persevered, drawing strength from their shared vision. One evening, as Jack and Lyra walked through the palace gardens, they paused beneath the twin moons. The air was cool and the stars above twinkled like scattered jewels. Jack looked at Lyra, her silver hair glowing faintly in the moonlight, and felt a surge of gratitude. "You've given me a new life," he said softly, "a chance to do something meaningful." Lyra smiled, her violet eyes shining with warmth. "And you've given us hope," she replied. "Hope that our differences don't have to divide us." Jack nodded, his heart full. He knew the road ahead wouldn't always be easy. There would be challenges, misunderstandings, and moments of doubt. But as long as they faced them together, he believed anything was possible. As the moons rose higher in the sky, casting their silvery glow over the landscape, Jack felt a deep sense of peace. This alien world, once so foreign and intimidating, had become his home. And though he still thought of Earth from time to time, he knew he belonged here, with Lyra, with the Velani, and with the future they were building together. For the first time in his life, Jack felt truly whole. He wasn't just a lost traveler anymore. He was a bridge between worlds, a symbol of what could be achieved when two cultures came together in harmony. Whatever the future held, he was ready to face it, not as an outsider, but as someone who had found his place in the universe.